What is up, gang? It is trade deadline day, noon, 12 o'clock Eastern. I'm here with Forrest. I'm Matt. It's Hockey Town Hangout trade deadline special. Forrest, stuff is happening, man.
Man, this is the first thing we've done here on RWDH, a live stream coming to all of our fellow Ginger Ale loving fans. Figuring we bring a little bit of different content out there and see how everybody responds to it. So yeah, we're going to be talking through trade deadline a little bit, what's happened before, kind of previewing what we're hearing for coming up up until the 4 o'clock hour. Matt, lot has been going on. I would say probably one of the busier teams at the deadline has been the reigning champs, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Any thoughts on them adding Anthony Mantha, I think it was 2 days ago, and then Noah Hannafin yesterday? And real quick, an interesting tidbit I heard about this is the conditional 2025 first rounder that Vegas sent for Noah Hannafin is that if they trade away their first rounder for 2025 before March 10th, it will get pushed to 2026. So it sounds like they are trying to wheel and deal again and potentially use that first rounder and give up basically 2 years worth of picks. So something interesting. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think, Vegas is a team that everyone kind of likes to hate. And I think a lot of it is jealousy based. I mean, myself included, that's just kind of part of it. I mean, you're the new kid on the block and you're already a Stanley Cup champion. That's, unprecedented. But they seem to be in on every major player at every deadline, every offseason at the draft, links to damn near every big name. And as long as the current CBA is written the way that it is and allows teams to put guys on LTIR and pretty much eliminate the salary cap in the postseason, Vegas is going to keep doing it. I mean, it's the third year in a row Mark Stone's gone on LTIR, and for better or for worse, that's their methodology, and that's what they're going with. And it worked last year, so maybe it'll work this year. Anthony Mantha on your third line in the playoffs, I kind of like that. I'm not going to lie. Don't love his defensive game, but as a third line power forward who can, maybe score you 2, 3, 4 goals a series, I mean, that's not too bad. And Noah Hannafin and Alex Pietrangelo is your top pair. I mean, give me a break. Just give me a break. So, yeah, and honestly, the NHL is going to have a reason to really reconsider this playoff format because, I mean, you could very well end up having Vegas and Colorado in the first round, and that should be at minimum a second round matchup. I mean, it's unfortunate that if that does happen, one of those two teams is going to be gone early.
I agree with your point about everybody being a little jealous of Vegas. They're in on everybody. They're not afraid to wheel and deal, and they haven't had an early first round pick. They've been in the 20s, probably 25s plus. They've gone to the Stanley Cup final a couple times, and in order for them to get that high end talent, they're not picking at the top. They're taking home run swings on free agents, and it's worked. And they just continue to do it. Like Alex Pietrangelo trade. I'm pretty sure Alec Martinez was a trade as well. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel. I mean, all the best players on the team are captured via trade. And part of that, to your point, is a captain being out on LTIR, being able to move money around. But the thing is, they're savvy, and they're able to find a solution that maybe isn't apparent to other 20 to 25 GMs, and they're not afraid to take that gamble out in Sin City. And honestly, if everybody would love to have a GM that takes big swings. It's way more fun as a fan when you're bringing in big names and shipping out picks. But goodness, to see Colorado and Vegas in the first round again, I think is just unfair to the fans. Truly hate the current setup. It should just be 1-8 record. 1-8 record, one plays 8, and go from there.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, again, just kind of wrap up the whole Vegas point, I'd be super curious to know how many like strictly caps and CBA people they employ. I don't know if there's a limit to the amount of people you can employ in that department, but it seems like the guys that they have analyzing the cap, analyzing the CBA, working those numbers, finding the flag, it seems like they have a team of a dozen motherfuckers doing that, man. It's insane. And I just, I respect it a little bit, I mean, I'm jealous. I kind of hate them a little bit. I really hate whoever runs their Twitter account. But it is what it is, and they're a real player, and you got to give their staff a ton of credit because at this level, it is literally only about winning. The NHL is not a developmental league. That's for every other league. This is about winning, and they are centered around that. So respect to them, and I hope we can find a way to avoid that matchup in the first round so we can see them play in rounds 2 or 3.
I hear you. I hear you. I think the LTIR rule and the playoff format, two biggest things for the next CBA, and I know we were talking beforehand. That's what we want to see changed.
Sure.
Looks like we got some comments here.
Right.
One from Nate Schwartz. Why is it so quiet on the trade front in Hockey Town?
You want to take this one?
I can start off. Sure. I think part of it is just where the Red Wings currently stand. With Larkin, the captain, going down. I think Steve is now realizing that, gosh, our captain does quite a bit. Our captain is definitely the nitrous behind the engine that is the Red Wings. He is what makes this team go, and without him, I mean, we got absolutely crushed against the Avalanche. Granted, they are
great team,
a top level team. They have the top level talent that all of us are envious of, and gosh, would give anything to have, but we aren't able to build a team that way. And I think that Steve is saying, hey, we are stuck here in this current state, and I don't think they're going to push the chips in. I think it's maybe a year too early to push the chips in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so when we started doing this pod at the beginning of this year, like we kind of predicted them to be around like that 90-point range. I think I said 88 to 90.
I think I was 88 and you were 89. Yeah, real exciting stuff.
But anyway, so I think for me personally, if they made the playoffs this year, they are a year ahead of schedule. And if somehow they made the playoffs and won a round, I'd say they're 2 years ahead of schedule. So I guess for me, like this team, I mean, I tweeted it out a little bit earlier, like they balled out for almost 7 weeks in a row. Like played like maybe some of the best hockey we've seen them play since they were a playoff team. It's just hard for me to sit on my hands in a way. And like, I'm not saying like you need to go out and you need to acquire a rental player for a first or a second or anything like that. I don't think it's a smart idea to acquire a rental player where you're at right now anyway, not in the standings necessarily, but where you're at in the rebuild timeline. If you could go out and acquire a player that has a little bit of term that could help you this year and next, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I just think the biggest problem for us is our defense. And you look at all these metrics, you know, I've got Trade Center going on in the background on the TV here, and they're breaking down all the teams in terms of like their power play percentage, their PK, their save percentage, their goals against, their goals for, and their goal differential. The Red Wings are top 12 in every single one of those categories except goals against. They're 22nd. So how can you be a top 12 team in save percentage and also be a team that's bottom 10 in goals against? To me, it speaks to the defensive system and or personnel, what you're asking every guy to do. And I just don't think the personnel as it is able to accomplish the team goals on a game-to-game basis with regularity. I don't think there are a lot of like upgrades available right now on defense. I think, you know, you could try and go after Jacob Chikrin, but is that really going to move the needle that much?
Real right quick, now? I mean, from everything that I've seen, it seems like defensively, at least, Steve is going to trade someone away as opposed to acquire somebody. At least everything that I've seen, like potentially moving out a whole Amada who's defensively responsible. I really don't know, but it sounds like they're trying to open up space for, you know, maybe a number 77 down in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, and honestly, dude, I'm totally okay with that. I think that's a decent way to improve your blue line. And again, tampered expectations there. Simon Edmondson's young. He doesn't have a lot of NHL games under his belt. He is doing great in Grand Rapids. But the American Hockey League and the National Hockey League are not the same. So if that does happen and we bring Simon up, I just want everyone to tamper their expectations there. Sometimes youth and like he's huge, like that can like provide a spark, but there's growing pains with young players. We've seen it over the last 7 to 10 years. So, and it stinks because the two defensemen I'd really like to move off of are Hall and Petrie, and they're both right shots. And obviously Edvinson's a left-handed defenseman. And I really don't know if it's a great idea to deploy 5 out of 6 being lefties. I don't really buy into the whole left and right, and you got to have it on every pair, but having 5 out of the 6 being the same handedness is a little mildly concerning. So then that brings you to Olli Maatta, who I don't necessarily hate. And do you move him out to bring in a guy who's got what, like 10 or 11 NHL games, maybe less?
Real quick, Matt, we have a comment out there about your hat, and I want to second that. It does look really nice. The question centered around, where it's from Tyler.
Tyler, buddy, this is from the Red Wings team store. I got it pre-COVID, so it was reasonably priced. And yeah, it's pretty much the only Red Wings hat I have. We went to the Wings game, Forrest and I did last week against the Islanders, and we went to the team store, and I was about to buy another hat, and then I looked at the price, and it was $63. And I
I'm pretty sure you posted about that.
Oh yeah, I did post about that. Yeah, but yeah, no.
I mean, it's
So I
something
got
to
it
be
from
mad
I
about.
got it from the team store. So
I think it looks cool. Let's see. Looks like Tyler Toffoli trade.
yeah, Tyler Toffoli got traded earlier from New Jersey to Winnipeg for a 2025 second and a 2024 third. Not a bad price for a guy who's got a lot of playoff experience.
Yeah, and that honestly opens up some cap space now in New Jersey. So they might be looking to go full throttle ahead on Markstrom with about 3 hours and 49 minutes left to go.
I mean, if they want to do that, go ahead and be my guest.
I mean, it'd be interesting because New Jersey's never had since Martin Brodeur, it has been a revolving door in goal there.
Yeah,
and even last year, like they just started off on such a heater offensively that it didn't even really matter defensively. Like they were just outscoring everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of things with the Devils this year. I mean, I forget exactly who they lost on defense, who they shipped out, but you brought in Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec, 2 rookies. Like, what did you expect to happen? And you got to remember, too, the year before they had 112 points or whatever it was last year, they had like 60-something. So, like, you got to understand that year last year for the Devils was an outlier. It just was.
Jack Hughes is they had like one of the
20.
longest winning streaks early in the season, and like I remember they were just light years ahead of everybody at about the halfway point, and they kind of backed their way into a playoff spot from there.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, they got in the playoffs and they won a round. So, I mean, obviously, if it was us in that position, we'd be disappointed too as fans. But I mean, you got to still be encouraged by the Devils organization. I mean, Jack Hughes is a real player. I'm sure Luke's going to be gross too. If they could find a way to get a goalie, you got Dougie Hamilton for a while, Timo Meier, like they're going to be okay. I really think they need to focus on finding a good coach. I would try and, my opinion on the Hockey Old Boys Club, but I would try and find like a younger coach who has good energy because you have a young group, man. Like you just do. And I don't think Lindy Ruff was the problem. I'd put maybe like 25% of the blame on him. But like at the end of the day, he's, a dude in his 60s. And I mean, I just think the NHL as a whole needs to get younger. And I hope the Devils can find a good young coach that can take them to the next step because, I mean, they're in the other division, so we wouldn't have to worry about them that much anyway. So,
well, and to your point, there does seem like there's a lot of room for growth with that team. Sure. a good spot for a young, maybe up and coming coach. I don't have a list off the top of my head, but looking in that direction and saying, hey, give them the keys to the franchise and go from there. You mentioned their core. They have studs up and down, just not in goal.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember last summer they were linked to Connor Hellebuck for a little bit. With what Winnipeg's done this year, I doubt they're thinking about moving off Hellebuck anytime soon.
Well, no, they re-signed him. They re-signed him and Shifley
right.
at the beginning of the season.
That's right. So yeah, so that dream's dead. I mean, who's left? Like, who could you? UC Saros maybe, but like the Predators are playing well. Do they really want to get rid of UC Saros for next year?
Markstrom in the same category too. I don't think either of those GMs can trade their goalies. I mean, just imagine the locker room after you ship out basically both teams' best player.
I just like when you think about goalies, like people always talk about like established NHL goalies. And like, I get it around the trade deadline. Like that's what you want, but like, you never really hear about anyone trying to acquire like a good, like 24, 25-year-old goalie from the American Hockey League and giving them a shot. And like, I think with how like kind of weird goalies are, like, I just wish we would see more teams give more goalies who are at like the top of other leagues a shot because the way look at Alex Lang for crying out loud. Dude went to Yale
Yeah.
and got undrafted, and he's like in his early 30s now, and he's probably a top 15 save percentage still in the National Hockey League. I mean, it's just anything can happen with a goalie. So I just wish we'd stop talking about the same 10 NHL goalies and like go out and give a guy a shot for a couple thirds or whatever it would cost. I don't know, man. But goalies are weird. Red Wings are still trying to figure it out completely as well. But there may be some light at the end of the tunnel in that regard with Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine.
Let's stick on goalies for a second there.
Sure.
Obviously, Lions at the top. He's on a absolute bargain contract. I think it's
Yeah.
under $1 million for
Yep.
this year and next year. I believe Husso is done after either this year or next year. We have Kosa in the AHL right now. Obviously, he got played out of the AHL last season. This year, he's holding his own. I think he was at like a 915, 916 save percentage. So much improved. Like he's playing better than I think it's Hutchinson, who's the other goalie down there. So seeing him take a step in the right direction, would you consider putting him as the backup next year?
No, I would not consider that. I would consider maybe giving him some games.
Well, but to your point, we got to let the AHL guys give him a chance.
You're right.
Why not put him in a backup spot? Fit him. We were talking a couple pods ago about fitting guys into the right spot. Find him those right spaces. I think you could shelter a guy like that.
The thing with goalies though is there's only one net. So like, do you really want this guy after being the starter in the AHL all year? Do you want him to come in and be a backup? And do you want to be really careful and meticulous with your spots? Do you pick him and start him? And then it's January 1st and he's only seen action in 12 games.
I'd rather get him the time at the NHL. Like at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's AAA versus professionals. I think getting a taste, it can only help him. Whether you play him as 9 games and send him down, say, hey, play your 9 games, we'll fit you into spots, and then we'll send you down and take what you learned at the NHL level, apply it to the AHL, be lights out, and force our hand to play you the whole next year in Detroit.
And you know what, Forrest? That very well could happen. You could give him some shots early in the year next year. And if he does really well, then maybe he kind of starts to emerge. And honestly, don't sleep on Trey Augustine either. Trey Augustine's pretty much like, I'm not going to say the only reason, but a huge reason why Michigan State just won their first ever Big Ten hockey title.
Big Ten Freshman of the Year.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kid, he's not the big, and it's kind of weird too, because Kosa's huge. And Augustine, I think he's like 6'1" or something like that. But so it's kind of like yin and yang a little bit. But for not being a huge guy, Augustine really tracks puck well and just finds a way to make save.
Something interesting. You mentioned the big difference in height. In the way how like baseball managers will sometimes not announce a starter until right before the game starts. Could the Wings potentially do that? I mean, think about it. You've got the monster Kosa in there, and then you've got Augustine, like 2 very different styles. I don't know.
I mean, with how like secretive they are with injuries, like upper body, lower body, like why not bring that element of secrecy to your lineup card? I don't know if that's allowed or not, but
I don't either. But it's something that I found I at least thought was interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about like how we've been playing, the standings a little bit here. What vibes are you getting right now as we get ready for what I've been calling the biggest must-win of Red Wings hockey in the 2020s?
I'm not feeling good about it. I mean, our best player's down. Our best player's down. The guy who stirs the sauce basically, and this team just looks so different without him. I'm not feeling good. I agree with you 110% on this being a must-win. I honestly think that the Coyotes game and the Buffalo game, they have to get 2 wins out of 4 games on this road trip. So in my opinion, I think both are, because you got Vegas tomorrow night. They are coming off rest. That doesn't look good to me. So in reality, I think it's tonight against the Coyotes, and on I think it's Monday.
Forrest, we got a little bit of Red Wings news.
Shoot.
Dave Pagnotta on Twitter, let's go Red Wings are expected to call up Jonathan Berggren. His name continues to swirl around the trade winds, but for now, he's been told he's going to be called up.
Love that.
So Jonathan Berggren to the Detroit roster, everybody.
I think that's a significant, that's just as significant as going out and getting somebody.
It's an
Uh,
addition, right?
a guy that can play middle six, maybe even top second line minutes, high skill, good playmaker. He's already at like almost a half a point a game at the NHL level. He has proven that he can do it at the AHL level. Why not give him a shot?
Yeah, I mean, especially right now, I mean, you really need everyone to step up by committee. And even with Larks in the lineup, that's how we've had success. It's really been offense by committee. I mean, how many guys do we have that are in double digit goals, like 10 or 11, something like that?
I think it's 11.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then could Berggren get there the last 20 games to make it 12? You never know.
Honestly, he could. He could.
I wonder if he'll play tonight, if that goes through, and I wonder if they'll get him on a plane out to Phoenix.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I think that Berggren's somebody that you might as well see what he's got. All too often, these GMs, they'll just make a lateral trade for some other guy, that's kind of middling in between AAA and the NHL level, and then you'll see him pop off in the other. They might as well call him up, see what he's got, give him the ice time that he needs to be successful, and if he's not, then hey, we know and we can move off of it or deal him, whatever it might be. But you got to at least see, we've spent way too long making young players earn their way up to the NHL level at the end of the playoff streak when really we could have used them.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where he slots in. I didn't love the way Veleno looked centering Kane and DeBrincat, but again, Colorado, really good team, not a great game. So I don't think you just bail on him after that. But it'll be interesting to see where they put in Berggren. Could he play with Raymond and Comfer? Could they try and start springing him right away? And because then you could keep that Perron, Rasmussen, Kopp line intact on your third line. And then your fourth line would be what? Fabs, Fish, and Sprong.
I like it.
Yeah,
it's deep. You got scorers all over the place there.
And then when you get Larkin back, then.
Well, honestly, that'd kind of be a tough. Do you go ahead and put Berggren up in the press box, or do you?
Not after calling him up. I'd put Fabry in the press box if it were me. Like,
I was gonna say it, but
I don't know. If there's any Robbie Fabry lovers watching, I apologize. Even the goal he scored against Colorado was just pure luck. And the one, like Patrick Kane net front, like that was Patrick Kane's goal pretty much, just using a backboard. Fourth line player. I mean, it's nice, good depth. Like he scored 14 goals. Like it's not like the worst thing. You find a way to score. Like who cares? They don't ask just how many, right? But I would bump him. I wouldn't bump Berggren. Like you're calling him up. Like you have to understand the messages you're sending to these kids. Like you're calling him up. They haven't made any other trades to acquire any NHL players, and then you get a call saying, "Hey, you're coming up to the roster." Like I'm the acquisition. All right, bet. So then what? When Larkin comes back in 6 games, I'm just going to be in the press box? Fuck you. No, you got to let him play. You call him up right now, March 8th. You let him play until April 16th. Bottom line.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope that they give him the true audition here.
And then if there's no room for him next year, then you got a 20-game audition in 23-24. And if anyone's interested at the draft, there's your tape. You got to play this kid.
I like it.
So there's a comment down here that says, "What's the price for Gudas?" I don't think that that's going to happen. I think your best shot at Radko Gudas was in July, and it stinks in hindsight because we signed Justin Hall 3 by 3.4, and Anaheim signed Gudas for 3 by 4. And in California, 3 by 4 is really like 3 by 2.2. So I'm just really not sure. I'm really not sure why we couldn't find a way to bring in Radko Gudas, considering Steve Yzerman drafted that big bearded motherfucker. But hey, sometimes things don't work out, and you just need to acquire a guy to, get people coffee in the press box, which is what number 3 has been doing since fucking Christmas.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Just is what it is at this point.
The time for Gudas was in the summer. Like
Yep.
I don't know how. They are basically the same. I shouldn't say the same player. Gudas has that bite, that snarl.
This is way better than Justin Hall.
The,
Way better.
the kind of guy that this team desperately needs. Someone with some snarl that's not going to put up with shit. I think Gudas would have been perfect for this team. But, sometimes when it seems like the stars align and, Iserman, former GM, who picked Gudas, it seemed like, the stars were aligning for us to get him. It didn't work out that way. And sometimes it doesn't when it seems most obvious,
Just seeing Jason Zucker to Nashville. So Nashville acquires another player.
Minnesota. Okay.
Oh, wait. No,
He used to play in Minnesota. He's in Pittsburgh now, right?
From Arizona to Nashville. So he was out. He was out in the middle of nowhere.
Gosh, yeah, I'm like 2 teams behind. Holy cow. Apologies.
Also, to anybody who's been saying the Wings should go out and get Matt Dumba, just a resounding no from me on that. No thanks.
No, he's a former shell of himself.
I'm set. Thanks.
I want to jump back to Vegas and Mantha for a second.
Terrific. Let's do it.
Because we love talking former Red Wings on this pod. He actually had like positive underlying metrics, both offensively and defensively, and I thought that was really interesting because we always, I don't know, we always kind of saw him as like I always saw him as a guy that would skate out of the zone early and look for offensive chances regardless. Really playing top notch both ways this season. I mean, we basically got rid of him for Vrana, and that was kind of a wash on a trade. But for the Caps to recoup, a second round pick, I think for him, wow.
Yeah,
we'd be talking about that.
Yeah, it just again,
he was untradeable last year.
Yeah, no one wanted him last year. I feel like I was watching ESPN Plus last night, bouncing around between games, and stayed up late and watched. I was bouncing back and forth between the Vegas game and the Islanders game. Shout out to the NHL for letting the Islanders play an AHL goalie last night. But regardless, I was watching the Vegas broadcast, and they were talking about Mantha and just kind of what he's been through. Talked about how he hired a mental health coach to help him just kind of settle his game down and everything.
Really?
Yeah. So I think
it's perfect for him.
He's married now. He's a dad now. I don't think he's a bad person at all by any means. Just, he was a young kid in Detroit, didn't work out, didn't have the best habits. And maybe, the coaching staff around him didn't do the best to bring that out of him. Who knows? But regardless, he's on a really good team now. He's on a Stanley Cup contending team now. Vegas is going to be a tough matchup for any team they play against. They can beat you with their bottom six, and adding Anthony Mantha to that, a guy who can, pretty consistently show that he can pot you 20, 25 goals. What can he do in the playoffs? He was traded to Washington a few years ago for, Vrana and picks. Got to play in one playoff series, I think, with Washington that year. I think they got out in the first round that year. That was post-cup for them. So I wish him the best of luck. It's cool when you get to see a former player hoist a Stanley Cup. We got to see Darren Helm do it a couple years ago. Good for him. Vegas does repeat. I guess, you can be happy for a former Wing at the very least if you're into that type of thing.
Yeah. Gosh, Colorado just looked so good against us. I had nightmares last night about that.
I'm so jealous of Colorado Avalanche fans that you get not only Nathan McKinnon on your team, but also Cale Makar. Actually respectfully eat shit for that. Excuse me. So jealous. Literally, when they on the power play breakout and they drop past McKinnon and those fucking legs get churning, bro, it's just I couldn't even imagine being a D trying to gap that. I'd probably just fall over.
Well, a lot of teams do that drop pass, but when Colorado does it, I start shaking in my boots.
Yeah, and then going low to high,
be embarrassed out there,
going low to high and getting the puck to Makar. I mean, honestly, that hat trick goal. I don't know if anyone saw the replay of that puck luck on that bounce that rolled up Lions pad, snuck under his glove, and trickled between his torso. Such charity on that bounce.
Well, don't forget the first one either that bounces off a cop's stick and perfectly goes into the net where not even off the ice.
Yeah, just kind of a perfect storm game, unfortunately, playing a team that, and I even heard reports too that Ryan Johansson wasn't the most liked in that locker room, and they traded him away that day. So if that's true, then that makes the guys there feel good. And man, McKinnon, Rantanen, and McCarr looked like they felt great in that game, which was terrible news for us. But
Yeah,
like again,
unfortunately.
too, like what's the scouting report on the Avalanche? Like what's the actual scouting report on the Avalanche? Stop their fucking horses. Like I don't know, man. To your point too, without Larkin, we are
Hope and
not the
pray.
same team. We are not the same team without 71. Just not even close.
Yeah. Well, for Colorado, it's goodness. You better hope that you stay out of the penalty box, and then hope and
Yeah.
pray that 8 and 29 don't score. That's essentially it.
Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. What are you thinking ahead of this matchup with Arizona tonight in the desert?
Gosh, must win as previously mentioned. Would love to see Berggren in like a second line up top in the top 6 somewhere.
Yep.
Get him the opportunity to be a playmaker with some guys that are high skill. Like in his previous stints up here, he's played lower in the lineup. No. Give him a chance to play with high skill guys and really see if he's one of those future cornerstone guys or if, we can flip him somewhere else.
I hope it works out for him. I'm not optimistic because he's a Ken Holland draft pick, but in the action he's seen so far, he's looked pretty decent. So I'm willing to give him a shot here down the stretch. I mean, we need some type of offensive spark or help at least in these next 6 games without Dylan. So if he can come in and be serviceable top 6, maybe get some PP2 time, hey, I'm cool with it. Like, I mean, I would have liked to see them go out and get a guy like Buchnevich. I'm sure Yzerman talked to Doug Armstrong about it. I'm assuming the price was too high. It said they were willing to get creative to retain up to 50%. If you're willing to retain up to, $3 million for 2 years, you're probably going to want to be rewarded for that. And obviously whatever he was asking for was, I mean, we still have 2.5 hours here before it's, officially over. Anything can happen. But I'm kind of assuming what Army wanted was a little bit too steep for Steve's liking.
Oh, that Steve checked in with St. Louis. Those two buddies at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
That's basically on speed dial for them.
Yeah. And but again, I just
real quick. One I would love to see Berggren get some time with Patrick Kane. Berggren, the way he kind of holds the puck in surveys, reminds me a little bit of Patrick Kane when he does that. And I would love to see Berggren get to pick his brain on how to, manipulate a defense really from that sideboard. So I would really love to see Berggren get that opportunity on the power play and really take advantage of it. Because, I mean, honestly, when I see Jonathan Berggren, like I think that he has the skills. The dude is really good at passing the puck. It's just a matter of getting the opportunity.
Yeah. Then you'd have to split up 93 and 88 though, because you're not going to put any one of those 3 at center. I don't think so.
No, you're not.
but yeah, no, I don't hate that idea. And then just like on Patrick Kane too, like this is like just a personal opinion. I think like even if we do slightly miss the playoffs, I think Patrick Kane's still going to re-sign in Detroit. I think that he is really happy here. I think, you see like his kid and Archie DeBrincat, like at every game they're together. Like obviously Patrick is really close with Alex. When you're really tight with somebody, you want your kids to be tight, gives you, a reason to be friends forever. It gives you a reason to hang out more, that family feel. I mean, Kaner's won every individual accolade you could think of in this league. I think he has grown up a ton and matured a ton as a human. And if you don't like that opinion, then tough shit, to be frank with you. He's matured. He's a heck of a player. And I think there's a real family type of feel and emotional tie to him wanting to be here. And I think he's going to sign an extension here. Whether he plays out that full contract extension, I'm not sure. Maybe he does want to win one cup when he's like really staring down retirement in the mirror. But I think him re-signing in Detroit, I think the odds on that should be pretty favorable for the Red Wings.
Yeah, I think most people would like to see 88 continue in the winged wheel. I mean, think about some of the moments he's had this season. Like, we've been treated to some really awesome hockey with him being in town. And, you brought up all the intangibles, the family and friends and having familiar faces. He can still re-up here for a year or two. And if he changes his mind, we can still trade him. So I think that just the fact that he does have that personal connection here with the Brinket, that's I think the most important thing to him. Because why else would he have came here if it really wasn't? I mean,
Yeah,
we don't get free agents usually.
and like honestly, dude, like I when we have our full lineup and Alex Lyon is playing up to his ceiling, I think we're a really talented team. Like if we have our full roster, we're healthy, Lyon's on his game, and our depth D can find a way to just survive in advance. We're a tough team to play in the first round. I'm not saying we're going to win a round, but I don't think Detroit is a team that would get swept in round one if they end up making the playoffs, and they're healthy.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, they're top 5 in goals scored in the league. We know that they can score against anybody, but in the playoffs, it comes down to shot suppression, goal suppression, and really defensive structure in a way. You find out who the best defensive teams are because they wear you down. And, we saw that against Florida. They absolutely made life miserable. I mean, I think we had 12 shots in the whole, or, maybe 15 shots in the whole game. So it really gets ratcheted up a notch. And even though, we did lose out to Florida, we did lose out to a Colorado, I think these are good building blocks and good learning opportunities. So even if we do miss out by a couple points this year, it at least gives the younger guys a little taste of, hey, it's fun being in the mix post trade deadline. We want to continue to do that and, do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said earlier in the pod, like if they were to make the playoffs this year, I think for me, they're a year ahead of schedule. And, anytime in a rebuild timeline, and obviously everyone's timeline is different. I don't know what Steve's real timeline is. He makes it very clear that he's not telling anybody about that. But for me, I think if you make the playoffs this year, you're a year ahead of schedule. If you win around this year, you're 2 years ahead of schedule, in my opinion. So if you can find a way, over these next 6 games without Larkin, I mean, if they can just beat the teams that they should beat, and if you can find a way to, in some of these games against these other playoff teams, find a way to chip away and get some points, like they're going to be all right. So these next few games without Larkin are just super critical because without him, you still have to beat the teams that on paper you need to beat. If you're a real playoff team, that's what you have to do. You have to beat Arizona tonight. You have to beat Buffalo. You have to beat Pittsburgh next week. Like you have to beat these teams.
They need to buzz me into the locker room tonight so I can give the miracle speech to the boys. They need the miracle speech tonight, and somebody's got to be tribute. I will go ahead and be tribute.
Wow, is that pre or post ginger ale? That speech?
Oh, for sure, post multiple ginger ale speech. Got it. You want the fire in that speech, and that's what the ginger ale provides.
I'd go out there and take a run at a guy for you. I'd get a puck deep. I'd be a hard F1 for you all day, buddy.
I love a guy that gets pucks deep.
All right, gang, we're at like 12:38 here Eastern time. Red Wings being semi-quiet here on the trade deadline front. We have learned that they plan to call up Jonathan Berggren from the Grand Rapids Griffins. But so far, no NHL players have been acquired. Steve Yzerman, let's not forget, too, the last couple deadlines, that Mantha trade came in at the 11th hour. Mm-hmm. Last year, the Hronek trade kind of came in late. So it's, we still got a little over a couple hours here, 2 hours and change. Something could happen, but right now, still pretty quiet.
Yeah, you mentioned on your timeline, you feel like the Wings are a year ahead of schedule. If Steve has that same feeling, which I'm sure he kind of does, I don't see any reason to push all the chips in on the table. This team is like, we added Patrick Kane like 2 months into the season. This team really, I don't even think has hit their stride as a cohesive unit yet. And maybe we haven't seen the full potential. I think we've seen bits and pieces of it. Like, they were 16-4-1 in like January and most of February. And so we know that they can be a wagon, but, one winning streak doesn't make a good team. We saw New Jersey have an awesome winning streak last year, and then they bowed out in the first round, after making deadline splashes and stuff. And that's the kind of thing that can go wrong. Is it worth making a splash to be a wild card team? In my opinion, no.
Yeah.
Unless there's like a generate, if there's a Jack Eichel or something out there, sure, but there isn't. Like, to be honest, before I found out Kuznetsov went to Carolina, I'm like, that seems like the ultimate buy low opportunity. Yes, he makes a lot of money, but they retained 50% of his salary. And Kuznetsov is a really good postseason goal scorer, postseason player. And he was captaining those first, second lines for the Caps when they were good. That honestly would have been who I would have tried to target, just because it's a fringe move. It's a buy low, but it's like Patrick Kane signing. It's something where, if it goes south, that's fine. You've got other people, but if it works, it's going to be awesome. And that's how the Patrick Kane signing has happened.
Yeah, I would definitely rather have Patrick Kane than Evgeny Kuznetsov for sure.
Oh, for sure.
The Hurricanes, to me, like, seriously, what is Frederick Anderson going to do? Rise from the dead and then win you a cup? Like, I mean, I just don't trust their goaltending whatsoever.
They will literally do anything but get a goaltender.
Anything.
They will go out and sign, they'll get Kuznetsov, who is in the AHL. They will get Jay Gunsel. Honestly, their top six is going to be nuts now. Like, they definitely needed goal scoring, and they went out and they got some talent. But it comes down to goaltending. And yes, the Carolina structure is awesome. The Carolina structure is really what saves them year in and year out, because they never have good goaltending. Since Cam Ward left, they have not had any good goaltending. And we see that catch up with them in the second round every single year. They're able to win a first round series when they have home ice advantage, and then they get to that second round, and A, they don't have the horses to keep up offensively, and B, their goalie is probably the third best in the series.
Well, I mean, Peter Mrazek played there, so show some respect, okay?
Sorry.
No, but I hear you. And honestly, and you brought up Gensel. When are we going to start acknowledging that Kyle Dubas is the most overrated general manager maybe in the entire league? Like, this guy came to the league, we're going on 10 years ago? Wasn't it 15, 16 that he came to the league? Well, I think he was AGM for a little bit under Lou, and then Lou left, and then they promoted him. But he's been around the NHL for probably a solid 10 years at this point. And you look at that return that he got for Gensel, and some of those prospects they sent to Pittsburgh aren't even ranked super high in the Carolina prospect pool rankings. So I don't know how you trade a piece like Gensel, who's been a Pittsburgh hockey staple since he's been drafted, pretty much. I remember the one playoff run, he kind of came out of nowhere, and he's been a staple in Pittsburgh on the top line with Sid ever since. So I do not know how you trade away that player from your franchise and you don't get at least one of the top 3 or 4 prospects within the Carolina Hurricanes organization. This guy just gets finessed and bullied in every trade negotiation he's ever had. He's older than us. He's in his late 30s probably at this point, maybe early 40s. This guy needs to reevaluate or get some better people in his ear, because that return for Jake Gensel, you could tell by the way Sidney Crosby was answering his press conference last night. Sid's pissed. And just wait till next year, because they're going to trade Sidney Crosby. You heard it here first.
As an NHL GM, if you see Kyle Dubas's number, you cannot pick up the phone fast enough. Dudes are probably, jumping through walls to answer the phone when they hear Kyle Dubas's name pop up. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Jake fucking Gensel, he was the reason they won those cups. We all knew they had Sid and Malkin, but him in his clutch performances, along with it was Matt Murray, I'm pretty sure back then, it was Gensel and Murray that were the pieces. Everybody, in the playoffs, your best couple players get neutralized. It is those depth pieces that win you the Stanley Cup, and those guys, they were it. And so to not do right and to basically trade him for Michael Bunting and a bag of pucks and then a couple picks, yeah, it's disrespectful. I mean, you have the best hockey player of this generation. and you're selling at the deadline. And part of it is he went out and traded for Erik Karlsson. They gave up a bunch of stuff to go get Karlsson, and I didn't really see the Karlsson fit in the first place. They're already an offensive juggernaut. They don't need another guy to provide offense. They need somebody that can keep the puck out of the net. So I just, and that goes back to Kyle Dubas. I mean, does the guy really even know what he's doing? Like, you can't pick up the phone fast enough. And every single trade, the signings, I don't know. I mean, I think he got fired in Toronto for good reason. I can't believe he got a job that fast in such a high position. Like, I can't believe he became a GM that fast again, let alone for the twilight years of Sidney Crosby's career. Watch, Sidney Crosby probably will only go for one first rounder when he gets traded. Maybe not even. Maybe Kyle Dubas will be like bidding against himself. No. I just want a third instead.
So you look at Karlsson's stats, and he had 101 points last year, but the years before that, 35, 22, 40, 45, 62. Clearly the 101 was a fucking outlier above the mean. And here we are 60 games into him on the Penguins, and he's at 43 points. And I don't remember the exact return, but I know they gave up a first round pick for him. And you're going to be maybe a top 12 lottery team, and you're not going to have your first round pick. There might be conditions on it. I don't know. Maybe it's top 10 protected, but
I don't think so.
Either way, I don't know, man. You put all your chips on the table for Erik Karlsson, and to throw him in with Sid and Gino, and you put all your chips in with Tristan Jarry as well. Re-signing him, bringing him back. So,
if I was the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins, I mean, I would have fired Kyle Dubas already. After the Karlsson trade. I just don't understand. It's like Alvila. I don't know how you can trust him with making another deal after he already made just, such a terrible one in the first place. The Penguins are exactly who Kyle Dubas thought they were. He wanted them to be an offensive juggernaut and not play defense, and that's exactly what they are, and they're not a playoff team. I don't know.
I do kind of feel bad for Sidney Crosby. I don't have a ton of love for Sidney Crosby, but it's impressive that he's still so good at his age.
Well, he's the best player of this generation, for no doubt.
Yeah, and after this year, he'll have 1 year left at 8.7. Well, remember, he signed that contract extension, making the 8.7 to match his number.
He makes less money than Dylan Larkin. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 1 year at 8.7, and I mean, if the Penguins are really willing to retain if the Penguins are willing to retain 50% of that, you could get Sidney Crosby for less than $5 million.
Wow.
I think
dream big, kids.
Yeah, dream big. I just don't. Sorry, I muted myself on accident. I just don't see a realm where Sidney Crosby finishes the season next year in Pittsburgh. He seems to me like a guy who is loyal to a point, but I feel like this whole thing with Gensel has rubbed him the wrong way, and the Karlsson move has not worked out. They're chasing it hard right now. They're not completely out of it. You could get hot, I guess, but they're not showing any reason for us to believe that they're going to do that.
Well, you mentioned Sid's comments.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, animosity, or you could just tell something was a little off.
He was irritated for sure.
Yep.
But I mean, again,
I honestly, that might be the nail in the coffin, right there. New GM, he's already made the decision to trade out one key cornerstone guy from all the cups. What's to say he doesn't just ship the next guy out to get whatever he can?
So
hey, he's got Erik Karlsson.
Hey, man, you never know. So with all of these moves that have already been made, there have been a ton of trades that have already happened. Kind of a decent arms race going on in the Western Conference. We're seeing Atlantic teams add some pieces. Florida adds the Tarasenko show. They also add Kyle Oposo today. Bruins added Pat Maroon. Just kind of feels like a vibe and mojo trade, more or less than a results trade. Tampa adding the Duke, Anthony Duclair. Toronto adding, Lyubushkin and Joel Edmondson, right, from Washington.
Yep.
So how do you see kind of the Atlantic shaking out a little bit with all of these moves that have been made. Obviously, the Red Wings calling up Berger, and we'll see if they do anything else. So some analysis on the Atlantic, and then who do you like in the West?
Atlantic, I think the Panthers are the best team. Also, with the trades they've just made, I think they are just head and shoulders the best team. Deepest team. I mean, I don't think I really need to say more. We watched them just absolutely grind us into a pulp. Over the weekend. So, and excuse me, not to mention they did that to us last weekend, and they've added pieces. So, yeah, yikes for that. I think Toronto's going to wind up being the second team. I think they're gonna take off, and I think the Bruins will wind up being third. That's just kind of my hot take. I don't know. I kind of been waiting for the Bruins to fall off forever.
Praying on their downfall.
Yeah, I know they're praying on my downfall. And then I have the Wings slotting in fourth in the first wild card slot. And actually, I'm going to say Tampa picks up the second wild card slot. I think that the Atlantic is the best division in hockey. And I think this year they're really going to show up by putting 5 teams into the playoffs. As for out West, are you talking like just in general?
Yeah.
Gosh, out West, I'm going to say I really like the Jets this year. I'm going to say Jets and Vegas in the out West. Those are the 2 teams I think are the 2 juggernauts. I got Edmonton a little bit below them just because goaltending, just like Carolina. Can't trust them. Stuart Skinner, I don't ever believe will win a Stanley Cup as a starting goaltender.
So in the West, if the playoffs, in the West, if the playoffs started today, you'd get a first round matchup of Vancouver, Vegas, and then Dallas, Nashville as your 1 wild card matchups. And then you'd have Winnipeg, Colorado, and Edmonton, LA.
Ooh, Winnipeg, Colorado would be a really good first round matchup. I think no matter who the 2 teams are. Is that the Central?
Central with Winnipeg, yep.
Interesting, because they're all the way out west, but
I just think it's gonna be Vegas or Colorado. Those 2 rosters. I don't think really when you get down to it, they both have won championships very recently, know what it takes. Vancouver feels new, doesn't really feel like they're ready yet. Winnipeg,
especially if you said they're playing Vegas in the first round. No, dude, Vegas is going to absolutely grind them to a pulp. That'd be a 5-game series, I think.
LA, I don't trust a roster with Pierre-Luc Dubois on it. Sorry.
No. They're the 2023-24 team that started, had the massive winning streak at the beginning of the season, fell off. Pretenders.
Yeah. Edmonton, we'll see.
I mean, the thing is they can match up with anybody top to bottom. It just comes down to can they get the goaltending?
Yeah, for sure. I really think it's going to be one of Colorado or Vegas in the final against an Eastern team. I like your take on the Atlantic. Florida, man, I really hope we don't get the second wild card because then Florida might sweep us. Maybe.
Oh, yes.
I mean, and honestly, too, it's impressive because their run last year, it's really hard to do a deep playoff run, especially one that really wasn't expected, and then go out and be a really dominant team pretty much all year. And the Panthers have done that. I really think their general manager, his name is escaping my mind right now, but I think he should
Barry Zito or something Zito.
Yeah, he should win
GM of the year, I think.
And the guy in Vegas too, Kelly McCrimmon. I mean, he just continues to find a way to get guys. If it was Vegas and Florida again in the final, I wouldn't hate that. I mean, obviously, I would love the Red Wings to play in the Stanley Cup final, but let's be a little bit realistic.
I just really can't stand Matthew Tkachuk. I'm just not a Tkachuk brothers fan. They get away with anything and everything, and it's annoying to me.
I like Matt a lot more than fucking Brady.
I mean, Matt is going around just cross-checking everybody in the lower back. I mean, I saw 4 or 5 instances in that game against us, and they're never going to call it. I'm sick of it. That's part of their persona is the refs letting them get away with all this bullshit. Oh, it's their persona. No, you guys just give them more leeway than fucking anybody else.
I mean, the ref has nothing to do with Sergei Bobrovsky being an absolute freak of nature. So that's just kind of my opinion on it. But shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Dang it. Well, we're on the final 5 minutes here, Forrest. What
If the Red Wings were going to do one more move before the end of the day and you had a say in it, what would you be campaigning for?
It would be call up Simon Edvinsson and send down like a Justin Hull or somebody.
So you would waive a roster defenseman and bring up Simon Edvinsson.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't hate that either.
I mean, we said that this team's good offensively. We have the goaltender now in Lyon. We need more defense, and I don't think it's worth it to go out and make a trade. And we just called up Berggren. Why not call up Simon Edvinsson and see what he's got?
Yeah, I don't hate that.
That's my one thing.
Again, I just worry about how many left-handed defensemen you would have on the roster at that point. Could you find a way?
We still have Ghost. I'd probably play Ghost on his offhand on the third pairing.
Yeah, but I mean, then you'd have to play Mata and Sherratt, who are both lefties too.
Oh, you're right.
So that's the only thing that
one of them played offhanded. Was it Sherratt who played off? Somebody played offhanded this year.
Well, Sherratt's been with Petrie, and that's a lefty righty. Same with Mo and Jake.
Okay.
So Mata and Ghost have been both the lefty pair.
So the Ghost who's been playing offhanded.
Yeah.
Not Mata. Okay.
So if you could find a way to,
I would rather play Simon Edvinsson in that third pairing role than Oli Mata.
Yeah, and in theory,
I would rather put him in the second pairing than Ben Sherratt and see what he's got. Like they can only marinate in the AHL for so long.
Right.
Like he's a 6'6" freak of nature. He's second on the team in points in his first full season down there. I just think if it was any other organization, especially one that needed the talent infusion we do, it'd just be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You want to make an important move at the deadline, bring up your prospect that has been knocking on the door all season long.
Yeah. And, to that point, too, I mean, like Ben Sherratt is an NHL veteran, wears a letter, has been in the league and played well for a long time. Like, he should be able to handle playing on his offhand, don't you think?
I would think so.
Yeah. So maybe that's an irrational fear. Who knows? Definitely.
Well, it's a good point because, some it's weird for some people. Like, it makes sense. It's something you got to check with. Not everybody's comfortable with it.
But, I mean, that move would allow you to acquire, I mean, what is he, 21, 22 years of age, 6'5", 6'6". Could maybe be second power play quarterback. Who knows? He could provide some energy. And we've obviously seen some clips from GR. He's not afraid to engage physically. And, hey, maybe he could provide a little jam, a little spark. We'll see what happens. We still got a couple hours here. The day is by no means over just yet. Stuff could happen all the way up to 3 and even past it a little bit.
Yeah, I just think not worth pushing all the chips in this year. Let's, improve internally without spending any kind of assets and see what we got. We've got the burger coming up. That's a good first step.
Saw a tweet from about 30 minutes ago that New York Rangers are kind of in on Pacioretty and Riley Smith. So we'll see if that goes anywhere. That'd be interesting.
I don't know. The Rangers are an interesting case to me. I think that they are just so goaltender dependent. If there was a team I wanted to play as a wild card, it would be them. I just think, they have the Panarin, Zibanejad line, and they play well in the regular season. But come playoff time, I don't know if they have the depth or the horses to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to.
Obviously, they don't either.
They lost in the first round last year in New Jersey, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they're an interesting team. I would definitely much rather play the 1 seed in the Metro in them than the 1 seed in the Atlantic in Florida. So I think that one's a no-brainer at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah. So any final thoughts for us on this live trade deadline special, which has been a lot of fun?
It's fun to even be speculating that the Wings are buyers at this point. It's nice to be able to realize, we're not just going to sell off a couple pieces. Let's see what the return is. No, there's a potential for us to buy, whether they do or not, to be seen. But the excitement is back, and the fact that we're even having this conversation, I think, is a step in the right direction. We are a little bit ahead of schedule. I agree with you in that. And we just really got to play well without Larkin. As many points as we can bank until Larkin gets back, that's going to be the key to whether we make the playoffs or not. So if he comes back and we've gone over, we're going to be out of a playoff spot by that point.
I think all of us will feel really good if we can still be in one of those playoff spots the game we get Dylan Larkin back, because I think a lot of us will feel very confident when he gets back. He's so very clearly the heart and soul of this team. He's so very clearly the MVP of this team. And anybody who says he's not a 1C after seeing what this friggin' team looks like without him in the lineup, you really got to think twice about that. Maybe he's not going to be a 100-point guy. Maybe he's never going to be 90-point guy. But if he can be a point a game and be a pace, energy, leadership guy and create that much of an impact in your lineup, he's a 1C.
He done been a 1C. He's been a 1C.
For sure. But so it is 1:00 p.m., gang. That's going to bring us to the end of this. The 806 people watching us right now, Forrest.
Hey.
So shout out to you guys.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks for hanging out.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, dude. We'd love to do more stuff like this in the future. If you enjoyed this, DM the account. Let us know what you thought. A lot of season left. Push for the playoffs is on. Wings at Coyotes tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, out in the desert. Forrest, any score predictions real quick?
I'm going to say 4-2 good guys tonight. I think they're going to come out, probably put up 2 in the first and play from ahead.
I'm going to go 5-1.
Love it.
I'm going to go 5-1. And if Berggren plays, he's going to tuck one. If he doesn't play, he obviously can't. But if he plays, I'm going to say he's going to tuck one.
Got it. We're going to have to check on that and tweet out if he's playing because, that honestly, for like a betting perspective, if you got a good feeling on that, the odds might be good on that.
Don't look at my gambling history. Please don't.
Well, we're only going to talk about the winners here on the show.
Oh, so right. Sorry. Well, then by all means, go ahead.
Winners only here.
All right, gang. Enjoy the rest of this deadline. Couple hours left. We'll still be active on Twitter. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Hockey Town Hangout on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.